Well, hello, everybody. This is John Paul Mendocha, Dr. Street Selling. This is Raging Verbalist number 285 for those keeping track. Hopefully you are. If you're a longtime viewer, glad that you're back. If you're new, welcome. Glad that you're here. Raging Verbalist is a topic that I pick and come and work through. Uh, Usually not about politics, but who knows? We drift sometimes into that. Now, this is kind of a special one because it's like a second part of what I did started last session. Also, I've got a uniqueness in that I was in a car accident earlier this week. So sitting there playing a little bit on a hurt side because my index finger has a spiral fracture. Never had that before. And I am left-handed, so I'm learning how to write right-handed and do everything else that right-handed people take for granted. So welcome to that. So let's get started. We've been talking about solar panels and the fact that I have had a solar installation. That's a fancy way of saying panels on my roof. And we just finished the 11th anniversary. It's actually my official birthday on that. You have regular birthdays, and then if you're in recovery, you got your other birthdays, and then I've got a birthday, which is when the official date that my system went online, which was June 21st, and that was 11 years ago, 2014. So we're past that. Now we're talking about what it takes to get solar panels on the roof, and hopefully, what I'm going to tell you is not, you know, either highly negative. I mean, there's lots of negative people. Solar doesn't work. Well, it works. It works wherever, where I live. It works great because, of course, the high cost of electricity. It works because it means that I don't have an electric bill. Yes, I paid a bunch of dough and I'm direct and honest and upfront about it. So all of that does that. Now, so there are naysayers. On the positive side, the crazy people who say, oh, I mean, you just slap some panels on the roof and, I went and bought, you know, 11 panels off of a guy whose, house got blown. I don't talk about that. I have a real installation, real deal, how it all got put together. So, as we pick up just some basics that you need to know about my system, I've got 40 panels on my roof. I live in Southern California. They produce more than enough energy for myself and my wife and my family, and and the fact that I've got business offices right there. So there you go. Now, one of the most important things is scoping a system. You got to figure out how big a system, and that turned out to be a much harder job than I thought it would be because, of course, the solar selling people are always looking at your bill and saying, well, we figure out about what you need and what's going to happen. And then we try to minimize the cost of what it's going to be, not to sit there and give you all the options. That, by the way, truly pissed me off when I put this thing together because, I couldn't get my head wrapped around exactly what I needed. So I ended up doing a lot of the work myself, and I figured out when I finally came to the resolution that I could put them on my east facing roof, that I could get 40 panels on my house. Now, it sounds like a lot. It is a lot compared to people who get, 4 or 8. I mean, why go through all the hassle of doing all that? Because the real hassle is all the things you have to do just to be able to get the roof and everything prepped to do that. So I've got 40 panels, and I'm not saying that everybody needs that. There's no magic in it. It's how many I could get on the two sides, the east facing panels and an array, and then the south panels. And of course, houses have never been designed, and from what I see as I drive around, are still not designed to maximize the number of solar panels you can get on a roof, which is too bad. But hey, it's the way it goes, and that's just how it happens. Now, the big deal about where to put them is that the mythology is that if you don't put them on the south side, it's death. Now, maybe if you live in, I don't know, Green Bay, Wisconsin, the sun, the big ball in the sky disappears, and it's all of that. But I live in a place where maximum sun does hit early June 20, 20, 21, 22. And those aren't years, but those are days. But for the most part, it's probably better to get them on the south side, but fractionally, marginally better. There's not like big gains. So that's mythology. The other thing is that I start harvesting power much earlier in the day because the big ball in the sky, we call it the sun, starts coming up in the east, and therefore it just starts showing up, and away we go. And I'm starting to produce electricity like at 5 a.m. in the morning in the summertime, and starts doing its thing. Great. So where you put them, frankly, we're gonna see as the efficiency of panels, which has gone up. Don't believe the hype on the internet where people say, "Oh, this is a zillion percent more efficient," and it's tiny incremental improvements, but it's compounded growth, so it makes a difference. And in fact, when I have to replace my panels, knock on wood that I won't have to replace them anytime soon, I'll be able to replace them with more efficient panels, so I can decide if I need as many or if in fact I need to, cut back on them. We'll see. But that's where you need to put them. Now, the big question, and this is the one that the solar industry doesn't want to talk about, because this is like the big giant elephant in the room, is what do I need to fix before I could put panels on my roof? Since you're going to be putting all of this extra weight, you're going to put all this other stuff, you're going to need to fix some things. I mean, unless it's a brand new house. So that means you need to think, okay, what do I need to do to make this roof, the whole system work? And in my case, I needed to replace the roof, and that meant stripping it. And by the time I got to the point where I needed to strip the roof, because see, anything you can do to make your house more energy efficient in this process, you should think about doing, as long as you don't do stupid things. My neighbor spent like 14 grand on windows. She's never going to live long enough to see a positive ROI. I mean, I'm not saying you don't like new windows. Windows are cool, got it. Never see a positive ROI from every calculation I've ever seen, because the savings are just too incremental. So what I ended up doing is the following. First off, we stripped the roof. We then replaced all the plywood sheathing, because this is going to be up there for a long time, not just the soft panels, which is what the roofer said like 99% of his customers do. Since we had the roof off, and it's a narrow pitch. I mean, the pitch of the roof is such that the insulation was hard to get to. So we're, did blew in as much insulation as made sense because we got access to it. But before we even did that, because my heating and air conditioning units are on the roof, replaced all the ductwork, because I was losing a massive amount of energy to gaps and all of that. So did the ductwork, did the insulation, new roof. I put on what are called solar shingles. Now, when you say that, people jump to the Tesla solar shingles. No, these are normal asphalt shingles, but they are designed, because of their color and their material, to reflect sunlight, and in fact to reduce the amount of heat that is going to be generated. I mean, I want the solar panels to absorb as much as they can, but the rest of the roof, I don't want it to be, like when you see people have a really dark roof, that's just a giant heat sink, just absorbing lots and lots of heat. So I did that, cost a little bit more money, did better ventilation in my attic, did all of that stuff. That's all before I ever got to fixing or putting up the solar panels and the solar array. Something you got to think about, because you got to do all those things or some of those things. And if somebody tells you that that's not correct, that's probably just bullshit. That's not the way it goes. So now you need to sit there and understand how much money. You got to put together a budget. What's all this going to cost you? Because that's like important. What's it going to cost you to do all of this stuff? And it's good to know, good to figure it out. Now, most people are what I call minimizers. Minimizers are people who are trying to always put down the lowest number possible, and then they're shocked when they have a cost overrun. You're going to fix something, do a construction project, plan on you're going to have a cost overrun. Things are going to happen. You're going to find out things that you got to do. So, but and did that. So how much also you're going to have to do? I had to do some electrical work. Luckily, didn't have to change out a panel. That, by the way, is the hidden secret that the solar panel people don't want to tell you, or the solar industry, or the green crazies, which is a lot of houses in the United States have solar or have main circuit panels that are too small because you're producing energy. It's got to come in somewhere. And just by happenstance, I had a jacuzzi whirlpool dealy, spa. So we actually disconnected that because it was old and I was going to get rid of it anyway. And I used that circuit to bring in the energy into my house. So that saved me a bunch of dough. Okay. So once you figure out how much money it's going to be, now you got to figure out what's the cost of money. And that's one of those difficult things. This is why people get sucked into lease deals and all kinds of other crazy deals. And as I was pulling all this together, I found out that there was this program called the Hero Program, now gone, poorly administrated, sucked. But it was essentially easy money, and I could borrow up to a good to some dough, and I ended up doing that. But I knew all the time how much my return on investment was going to be, and when I was going to get this thing back. And it took a long time to coordinate all those people because first off, once I found a source for it, now you're going to find the right contractors. I had 6 solar contractors bid on it before I took over the general contracting role. Not my suggestion for everybody to do that. Took a lot of effort and energy. I had done fixing and flipping houses, so I had known I knew a lot of the mistakes you could make. So that was that. But it took a while, and then I needed to pick like an insulation guy, a ductwork guy, a roofing guy, a solar panel installer guy. Took a while, but I put everybody together. And then I did something that most people never do, which is I brought all of those, different contractors together, what I like to call bringing all the liners in the room at the same time. And I said, hey, here's the plan. And one of you is going to have to be on point to watch out for the other ones. And if you're not happy with that, well, then I'll go find somebody else. It came together. They did a great job. All of them did their job. And my house became much more energy efficient, which means that I got even more benefit out of the solar panels. See, putting 8 or 16 or whatever number of panels on your roof, but not fixing a bunch of other stuff when you can at the time is really short-sighted because you might as well do it. You're there, fix it up, do what you're supposed to do. So it took a while to find the right contractors. And my suggestion is that you start looking early. I couldn't find anybody who was an all-in-one that I could trust or even got close to believing that they could do the job that we needed to do. Now, I guess some ways I've got an advantage, and I'm not trying to brag or anything, but I've got an advantage because of experience and all the various things that I've done. And also because of the fact that since I wrote a book later on, most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes them 3 to 5 years to realize a position to win, which, by the way, you can get. Shameless plug. You can get it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, or wherever books are sold. You can go ask for it by myself, John Paul Mendocha, and my co-conspirator, co-author, and business partner, Gabe Batista, or you can go get it electronically from uh, Kindle, Nook, and Apple iBooks. Now, the reason why this is important, see, most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. Most projects fail in the first 5 minutes because they screw it up, and that's why they're perpetually, falling downhill, and they're in trouble from the get-go all the way through. So I already knew that ahead of time. So go check out my book there. Also, if you want to learn how to do what I'm doing now, which is doing remote work, right? Wherever I'm at, I can work. Wherever I go, I can do it. It's how I can run virtual companies and run them successfully and pick up remote work for a better world. I know what a great pointer thing. So, and that's only available exclusively on the Apple Kindle, and you can go check it out. You can always go to our website, positiontowinbook.com, and check out that. And of course, you can go have the book signed and autographed by me. Well, we'll see how well the autographs look as we go forward. So we selected our contractor. We've done all of this. We've put together our plan. We're doing all that other stuff. So you got to get some things Excuse me, a little hoarse this morning. Got to get some things through your head. First off, you got to get real. Unlike, the full tilt bullshit on the internet about solar, there's no free lunch. There's absolutely no free lunch. Everything that you're going to get, you're going to have to work for. You're going to fight for. You're going to have to go for and go and do this stuff. I would suggest that you don't lease because I don't like the way that ends up happening. Also, if you're going to build one of these things, you should go out and do a pro forma. That's a fancy way of saying in the future uh, spreadsheet. You can go to the Department of Energy. They paid somebody a lot of money to come with a really good spreadsheet, plug in all of your data, and figure out how much energy this thing is going to produce theoretically. So that way you have a baseline that you're looking for as you then go out and move forward, because you'll find out that once you have solar panels, you start looking up at the sky and you see a little cloud and you go, don't cover my panels, damn it. Don't do that. So you got to do that. There's no free lunch. Next thing is that incentives matter. And, who knows if the tax incentives are going to last or not. That had a big effect on my ROI number, both the Fed and the state of California. Also, they were buying electricity. Well, that's kind of gone down step by step by step. Still a good decision, though. Still, I'm in great positive ROI. But I predict that with California cutting incentives, uh, and I haven't seen empirical evidence. I've heard anecdotally that it is like a 70, 80% reduction in the number of solar systems installed, which I think is a very bad idea. And then you also have to come to grips with how much needs to be done, because it's not like it's going to be a minor thing. The way they make it look, it's they're going to go out there and it's a bunch of Legos and you put it together and bang, you're done and you're out of this whole thing. And I can't stress enough that you need to have a plan and you got to work on that plan. You need to know what that plan is. And you know that that plan is going to always run into trouble. From that eminent philosopher, one of my favorite philosophers, Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And punched in the mouth is when you find out that your roof is rotting. Everybody has a plan until you find out that the crap in your attic, like I had virtually no insulation. Why was I spending so much on cooling, air conditioning bills? Well, there wasn't any insulation, and well, found that out. I kind of knew it, but when they take all the panels off the roof, yikes! Or I'm talking about the wood. So you got to have a plan, and I'll wrap up by saying this: if in fact you get your head wrapped around doing this, this is a long-term commitment. You're going to sell a house in 2 or 3 years, unless you've got really high electric bills. I wouldn't go through the hassle. If you're going to be there for a number of years, like we just passed our 11th anniversary and all of that, we didn't get away for a romantic getaway with our panels or anything. But once you get that kind of sense, that's where the savings, that's where the compounding, that's where the whole return on investment is. Now, if you're going to ask me, well, John, what happens at end of life? We hear that there's a deterioration, all that. That's in the future. That's in the windshield, if you will, off in the distance. But frankly, in 11 years, it's made a lot of sense. I don't have an electric bill. In fact, I have an opposite electric bill. Now, it irritates my wife that they don't send us the money they used to send us. It's the way life goes. Sometimes, they, the government giveth, the government taketh away, because of course, well, gee whiz, that's what we have. In the meantime, of course, they keep talking about how we need more panels. Incentives matter. But what I can tell you is that there is a very good feeling knowing that you have made an investment that pays off month after month, year after year. And most importantly, is that once you hit that positive ROI, each successive month, it actually improves just a little bit more because you have amortized all those fixed costs, and it just silently, effectively produces energy, which is a really cool thing. And it is the reason why I think that solar panels 11 years in make a lot of sense. And with that, with a damaged hand and all of those things, and a little bit of a rough voice, this has been the Raging Verbalist number 285. We'll see you next time. Hopefully you like it. So give me a big thumbs up, subscribe, and if you want to be annoyed, hit notifications too. Till next time, this is John Paul Mendocha, Dr. Street Selling. You have a great one, And we'll see you on the next Raging Verbalist.